Experience, quality, consistency, and the quickest turnaround times in the grading industry, we are proud to partner with SGC Grading. Check them out at www.gosgc.com.
Hi, I'm Isaac Alpert, a longtime card collector and the co-founder of the Penny Sleever. My wife and I started the Penny Sleever with a simple premise in mind: to offer collectors top quality supplies at fair prices. We offer a full range of hobby supplies, and we'll get them to you fast. Whether you're looking for a 260-point magnetic for that oversized patch card, or a slew of semi-rigids for your next PSA submission, the Penny Sleever has you covered. Shop now at thepennysleever.com and use the promo code SCNation to get 10% off your first order. That's SCNation for 10% off at thepennysleever.com. The Penny Sleever. Top quality supplies, fair prices.
Experience, quality, consistency, and the quickest turnaround times in the grading industry, we are proud to partner with SGC Grading. Check them out at www.gosgc.com.
Hi, I'm Danny Black.
And I'm John Newman.
Welcome to Card Mentions.
What is up? Good evening. I'm John Newman still, and I believe that's still Danny Black to the left of me on screen. Good evening.
I'm one of the directions.
All right, east. You're west. You're west. In real life, you're east of me. On screen, you're west of me. So figure that one out. But
it has something to do with the tidal waves and the earthquake in California. I'm not sure.
And the magnetic resonance or something.
Yeah, I knew you would get it.
All right. Hey, today we're going to, on this episode, we're going to do something that, we've had guests on this program. This is episode 53, if you're scoring at home. And we've had guests on this show. We've had pinch hitting mentions, but today we're going to do something for the first time. We're going to have guest mentions, but, full disclosure, we're going to have two of them. And just for obvious reasons that we can talk about, we had to pre-record that conversation, but it's still a fun conversation, still interesting, just the same. It's going to be about 30 minutes long. So we're going to talk here at the front, Danny, you and I, about kind of, we all have a hobby origin story. Like, how did this all start? Why are we here? It's got to start somewhere, regardless of where we are now or what our collections look like now. There was always that first card, that first person that, got us into the hobby. And I'll tell mine as quick as I can. I'll give you the clip notes. It's a story I've told on others. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's this time of year, this season, a lot of people are spending with family. A lot of times family is an influence. And so we just really, I think, wanted to share stories of family and people who got us into cards. And so, after the interview, I know if you have a story about somebody cool who got you into cards,
yeah, you want to save it. You want to save it for. You want to tease it and save it for post interview.
Well, you can do yours. No. I think we should do ours first.
Okay. Well, for me, and I've told this story, so I apologize if you heard it. I'm not gonna make it any longer than it has to be. I mean, my first introduction to trading cards was when the Jaws movie came out. Topps made those Jaws cards, and I honestly can't remember. It was a friend of mine. I just remember a friend of mine giving them to me. I didn't open any packs. Jaws cards were kind of handed to me. They became in my possession, and that was the first time I realized they make these 2.5 by 3.5 cards. It was the first movie that I saw in the theaters, as crazy as that might sound, at 5-6 years old. didn't take a bath for like 4 years because of that movie, and wouldn't want to go anywhere near water. Then I got the cards, and then it was that, like I've said, that 1979. I'm 7 years old. My grandfather went to the corner store, Brooklyn, New York. We were walking to the counter, whatever he was purchasing, and I saw that box of 1979 Topps baseball. And remembering the Jaws cards, I knew that these were baseball cards. Now, I was a baseball fan and a Yankee kid at that point, but I didn't know about baseball cards yet. And that I put 2 and 2 together, that these were baseball cards in that box. And I asked my grandfather, hey, are those baseball cards? And he said, yes. Would you like a couple packs, Johnny? Of course, no 7-year-old kid's going to say no to that. And I got, I don't know, 2 or 3 packs. I opened the one pack, Danny, before we even got out of the store, like the 4th or 5th card in, was that Reggie Jackson. And at that time, he was the toast of New York City and Mr. October. And the rest is history. I just started acquiring as many of these things as I could. And my grandfather didn't collect, but he definitely, bought me cards and packs and things like that. He wound up passing away 5 years later, in 1984. I'm now 12 years old. And I was raised by my grandparents, but I did see my mom and dad. I really saw my dad quite a bit for not living with them. And so when my grandfather passed away, in 1984, I started, I was already collecting, and I got my dad actually back into collecting. He collected as a kid who grew up and lived in Ebbets Field. And he said, man, I want to do this again. And so we started collecting together. I remember the 86 Topps set was like a big thing for both of us. Like I said, I had already been collecting, but that's the first really set I remember, like we both kind of, did sort of together. And, I started my first show at 15. He had to get me there because I wasn't driving at age 15. And so that's really, how it all kind of started. And, here we are, all these years later. And and I've spent a lot more money than those quarter 1979 packs.
Well, now you buy the 1979 packs, but they're in a PSA slab, and because I know you like the unopened packs, so I think you're still buying 79s.
My audio cut out, so I missed some of that. I'd love to buy some 79s packs at a quarter still, but those days are.
That's what I'm saying. I know you like to buy them unopened. You can still buy your 79s, just now get them PSA slab.
Yeah, I've been close to purchasing that pack. I do have. It's not the actual Reggie that I pulled in the corner store, but I do have that Reggie on the wall over there. That card, it's a PSA 8. My actual card would probably grade a PSA 2 because the actual one, which I have no clue if it even exists no more, or it's in the landfill. But I got that card in the PSA 8 over there as to look at it and remind me kind of that's what started this whole crazy thing. And real quick shout out, I mentioned my dad, kind of, we started doing it together in 86 after my grandfather passed. My dad got home from the hospital today, had a little heart-related incident, but he's doing all right. Yeah, so I won't spend a lot. Got a new medication and spent 3 or 4 days in the hospital, but was released today. So kind of tie that in there as well.
Well, continued health to him, and maybe we should just get our fathers to be roommates.
Yeah, we should have. I don't know who goes first, but we should have like benches after hours. I don't know who takes the spot.
Well, I don't know about your dad, but my dad can't hear, so it'll be a very loud show.
Well, my dad could talk loud like myself, so either they're the opening act or the closer, but that would be funny for sure.
That's funny. So my story is not quite as Spielberg-esque as Mookie said. My dad, diehard sports fan. I remember we were on a road trip and we got into an argument over Tris Speaker's lifetime batting average. I believe it's 345. I don't think I'll forget that. Um, but he taught me to love the sport. And then he used baseball cards to teach me about the contemporary stars. So this was probably 84 ish, 85 ish, when he was pulling cards and, talking to me about Gwen and Mattingly and Boggs and Ricky Henderson and using the back of the cards. I mean, I'll be honest. Julio Franco and Ruben Sierra. I mean, at the time, moving into the mid and late 80s, it was really just the love of the game and the sport. And he used the cards to show me, and I fell in love with the cards. So.
Yeah, it's crazy, and and with my dad too, a lot of Brooklyn Dodger stories, right? He loved I had him on Sports Car Nation twice to talk about that, but I heard those stories, as a young kid, and he gets emotional. He got emotional on the podcast talking about it because, I asked him why do you get so emotional talking about like fun times? And, he basically said, like, he enjoyed every minute of it, but it's sad when he thinks about it and you can't do it again. It's over. And that's what gets him a little emotional. So I never, you don't think about it sometimes like that until someone else explains it to you. And loves to talk about it. When I see him, we still talk about Brooklyn Dodgers. And he's not, at 86 now, he's not really following today's game. But he can definitely he can't remember stuff from two days ago, but he can remember stuff from Brooklyn Dodger games, 75 years ago. And that's I always get a kick out of that. Like you say, hey, what did you eat for dinner yesterday? And he's like, I don't know, but let me tell you about this game. In 1952, I was at Ebbets Field, and like I always laugh about that because that's just uncanny. Like you can remember certain things and not others. And, it's why the Dodgers obviously were long gone out of Brooklyn when I came along. But hearing those stories from him and other people in Brooklyn, that, that's my attachment to that team, obviously, my being a hometown team, even though they're gone, and Jackie Robinson. So.
Great chat room tonight. Good to see a bunch of familiar faces. I haven't been giving all the shout outs, but give a group shout out to everybody. I think it was TJ said, great group and great host. So thank you. Yeah, it was TJ. Appreciate you. All Warren has made it, so we can begin the main feature. We were waiting for you, Warren.
Yeah, and real quick, one comment. Rob Manfred is the worst commissioner. I don't know how you feel about this, Danny, or the chat room. This guy is the worst commissioner in the four major sports. This golden at bat. When I heard this golden at bat deal, I thought it was like a joke, like a meme, just someone poking fun. And then when I found out it was like legit for consideration, like. I wanted to pull my hair out. This is like horrible. I don't know if anyone else likes it, and I'm on the opposite
I don't think it'll
side.
ever happen.
And it's terrible for records, right? You can have your best player or what you perceive as your best player just taking it bad, and like that just distorts records as well. And it's a disservice to players that didn't have that opportunity. You don't think the Yankees would have had Mickey Mantle bat more, and and every team with whoever their superstar is at the time. This is like the fact that this even came out publicly to me is even in bad. Like I hope this never happens, but the fact that it's even being discussed and owners are not like, you're insane, keep your mouth shut and we're paying you and stop coming up with like comic book ideas. Like I just think that's ridiculous.
This soapbox brought to you by Dove, 99%.
And by the way, speaking of Dove, I've tried the soap and I've tried the chocolate. The chocolate tastes a lot better.
Way to go. Too funny. Okay. Well, do we want to try to pull this off? Chat room, we're going to show an interview we did earlier. What was it, last week?
Yeah, last week.
With Ezra Levine and his father, Rabbi Robert Levine, and they were nice enough to take some time out and talk about passing down collecting from father to son. In this case, the father is very much a collector, and probably the bigger collector of the two. Ezra runs Mascot, if you're familiar with that. Anything else to say?
I just want to say, like, we got the first time I met, the elder Levine, Rabbi Robert, was at this national. Ezra introduced them to us. That was the first time I met him, and obviously we talked to him, but briefly. And the national's a busy place, and we that's where we got the ball rolling about, hey, let's have you on, and we'll talk about collecting. And I think a lot of people know Ezra. I don't know. I think less people obviously know Mr. Robert Levine, Rabbi Robert. So I think even if you know Ezra, this will, and Ezra's a great guy too. I don't want to make it so, but it's cool getting to know his dad and seeing how it all started and between, the dynamic between them. So, and I don't know if they've ever done an interview. It might be I don't know if they've ever done an interview at the same time. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I learned a lot, especially that Dad has been to a lot more nationals than I have been.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
All right, well, guys, we're going to be in the chat room, but we're going to let this play. It goes about half an hour, and then we'll pick up the final 15 minutes of our show tonight. We'll see if this works, John. Enjoy the intro all over again.
I'm Danny Black.
And I'm John Newman.
Welcome to Card Menches.
Well, welcome to Card Menches. As you can see, we've got an extra window today because we're joined by two extra menches. Let me first say hi to my regular co-mensch. What's going on, John?
We're not doing this live. That's the only difference. But we got two great people joining us, so that's the trade-off. And I'm willing to make that trade 8 days a week. So,
well, any time it's not just you, I'm appreciative. So. Ezra, Robert, the Levine family, thank you for joining us on Card Menches. How are you?
We're good. We're here today, actually together, which is nice. My dad and I live pretty close, and so every Thursday. I solicit him for child care duty.
It's our pleasure with our grandchildren.
I figured
absolutely.
I can't think of a better way for him to spend his Thursday after being stuck on child care duty all day than to talk to you fine gentlemen.
I hope you're paying him double.
It's almost the same thing. Robert. It's almost very similar. Especially with me.
Right. I like reading your stuff every week, SCD.
I appreciate it. Check out Hobby News Daily, a little shameless plug for Danny.
John writes everywhere.
It's a family show, so I'll just be nice and we'll leave it at that.
All right, Ezra, we know you. We've talked to you. I know your fandom. I know how you were raised, and you've often talked about your father's influence. So one of the cool things about Card Menches is talking about why we love baseball or why we love sports, why we love collecting, and getting that passed down. So I guess, if you don't mind, Ezra, I want to start with your father. I'd love to know, Mr. Levine, your story. How did you get into sports and interest in collecting?
Well, sports. My father was a big fan. He grew up in New York. He was at Don Larson's Perfect Game, and they moved up to Massachusetts, where eventually he became a Red Sox fan. But he was a major influence in my love of sports. And I remember he had his ticket stub from that game. So I was, well before I was a collector, I thought that was just unbelievably cool that he saved that, because obviously for him it wasn't a collectible, but he was at the game, so it was a great thing. And I would say one great influence. He was a grocer, and he would bring home boxes of Topps cards. And my parents would give us, if we were not punished for something we did that day, we got a pack a night. And this began, I would say, probably 1958 or so. I remember collecting complete sets. I have a very, very firm memory, and I had virtually the entire 61 Topps set. I needed Mike Delahose, and everyone knew I needed Mike Delahose. So no matter what I offered, they weren't giving me Mike Delahose. So obviously these things, this was not monetary value, and I'm sure the cards were shit, but
it's a family show, Dad. Come on.
Yeah.
That's right. We let that one's not on. I don't think that's one of the 7 words. So I think you're good.
Yeah, but and of course, when you think about the fact that there were all these boxes of unopened cards my father paid, I think, 2 cents a pack, so probably 48 cents for the box, right? And when he closed the store, of course, I dive bombed into the basement of his store to see if there were any cards. He had everything but cards left. And they think of because one of the things I love is unopened. And when I think about what I have paid for packs and boxes versus, what he paid for his boxes, it's a crime. It's a crime, gentlemen.
Real quick before I let John in here, did you connect your sports fandom with who you wanted to collect? Were you collecting your favorite players, or was it more just putting sets together?
No, I mean, I do have a lot of Yankee stuff because I am a big Yankee fan, so that is true. But no, when I got into the collecting hobby, I remember going to a hobby shop, and the first cards I bought were a 48 Bowman Musial and I think it was a 50 Ted Williams. So it was just cards that I thought were cool. Now, like many collectors, I met unsavory elements in the hobby. I was taken a number of times. And so I remember seeing an ad for PSA graded cards in the mid 90s. And I didn't really know what PSA was, but I said, wow, I can buy where somebody in authority has looked over this card and I'm not going to get slimed again. I don't know if you want to mention names, but, I met a lot of them, a lot of the infamous early pioneers in our hobby.
Yeah, I think all of us came across them.
Me, I got into, graded stuff pretty early and was really happy to discover it.
Just piggybacking off that, Rabbi Levy, you mentioned you like unopened stuff.
Yeah.
Expand just slightly further on that. Like to this day, like do you have sealed wax or packs of?
I sold, during the pandemic, my wife and I were planning to buy a house out of the city so we could get away. We never did, but I ended up selling my boxes, but not my packs. So I still have a small but wonderful collection of packs, several examples of which are the only ones PSA has ever graded, to show you how, this stuff is really difficult and rare. And I do love unopened still.
I'll speak for John since he's shy about it. He loves unopened wax and unopened packs. That's one of his favorite things to collect.
Well, I think the rabbi summed it up. It's hard to find that stuff. And a lot of it during that era, right? No one was thinking really long term. They were just ripping that open, looking for Mantle and Mays and Aaron's, and little did we know, the sealed market was going to be what it is, today. I want to get Ezra, in the conversation here. Talk about kind of your introduction to the hobby, and was your dad's influence there, or even who got you kind of introduced, and similar question like your dad, but with you.
Yeah, I probably told the story a couple times, both on each of your pods. But yeah, I always give my dad all the credit, because he really is the person who got me into this industry, into this hobby. I remember, some of the best business arrangements I've ever had were when my dad would buy us a box of cards for both I and my brother. We would essentially open up the boxes of cards in our childhood bedroom. We shared a bedroom growing up, and we'd set up a little mini hobby shop in our bedroom. Yeah. And the person who bought the cards then became the customer. So we had essentially a zero cost of capital business model, and we can resell everything at a profit. Our cost was zero on it. Even when I went to summer camp, which is popular here in the Northeast, instead of my friends who would get boxes of candy or food from their parents, my dad would always send up boxes of cards.
By the way, may I interject? My father bought you a lot of cards.
That's true. He did.
So it went from grandfather to he loved buying. He didn't exactly know what he was buying, but he bought in bulk, shall we say? Yeah. And he had a great pleasure giving Ezra and his brother, hundreds of cards at a time.
That's true. And I have memories when we used to go visit his father, my grandpa. There was a hobby shop up in Massachusetts, close to Springfield, Massachusetts. We used to go there all the time. Each visit when we went to visit my grandpa and my grandmother always involved some degree of hobby shop visits within it. It was a big part of our childhood. It was a big part of our childhood. We still have all of our cards to this day. When I moved recently, my mother said, you have closets full of cards. You should probably go through them. And having a little bit of background in this now in this category, having done this for a couple of years now, I said, I know that my cards are worthless unless I find, some green PMG. Odds are my thousands and thousands of cards from the early and mid 90s are probably not going to be worth much. I did. And sure enough, they weren't worth much, but it was a fun trip down memory lane.
You never know. I just saw a Frank Thomas 1990 no name and a 10 go for a lot of money. So
it's possible.
It's possible to go into those sets and come up with something good.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's possible I could grow some more hair, but we don't think. We don't take those odds.
Well, there's a limit. There's a limit to everything. Some of those 90s inserts and parallels too that we, sometimes we forget about, but they've sort of, gotten a second life when people realize how scarce they actually are, especially, on the basketball side, but baseball and other sports as well. When you refound your cards, Edgar, did you once again try to sell them to your dad?
he's smart enough. I think when you're past the age of 12, I think some of those sort of things go by the wayside. But no, in seriousness, I mean, I really would not be in this industry. I would have no interest in this as a collector. I would have no interest in building businesses in this category if not for my dad. And by the way,
the dad is kvelling. You like the word kvelling?
Yes.
I mean, the dad is kvelling over his son. I mean, whoever thought he'd have a son going into the hobby business? I never dreamed.
So who's the bigger collector now?
Yeah, my collecting frankly, I love everything, but I have great taste and, a somewhat limited budget. So I always have to sell to buy. And the list of things I once owned, I would retire with no money whatsoever. It's just I could make you a list that would be drool worthy.
Yeah, he's always had great taste. He's always been, one thing that, I don't know if you guys have read the article, there's an article probably from almost 30 years ago at this point, where PSA actually wrote an article in their magazine about his collecting. This was probably, when was this, early 90s, would you say?
Yeah, probably.
Early
I think that
90s.
was focused on tickets, I think, at the time.
Tickets. But
I don't collect tickets anymore, but, I drift in and out of things.
The theme of the article was about how he was always a pioneer into early emerging categories, whether it's type 1 photographs,
like those.
Tickets, wax, sealed product, like anything that was emerging where, perhaps it wasn't as picked over as liquid yet as cards. He was always an early entrant and really had good taste and surround himself with really good advisors and people who knew that particular niche intimately, and he's done quite well. I very much admire his collecting style. He's certainly quality over quantity. Yeah. He loves great items. He appreciates great items, and then he ultimately moves it to find something else that he loves and appreciates. And so I've learned a lot from his style. And what I'll also say is that his involvement when I first started to do this professionally, his name, his reputation, his relationships were of real significant value to me. And, that's as much as a son could ask for, right? As to sort of,
thank you, son.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true. And so I've been fortunate to kind of, to walk in his shadow and his shoes. And he's definitely opened up a lot of doors for me.
And I do, and I think his company, for example, I mean, we've all been to shows for many years and, to think, you walk and you have no idea what to look for. And, it was 30 years behind the times, and companies like Ezra allowing people to, to sell quickly, but to know where things are. I mean, it's a great idea, right? But you have to have people with a vision to, bring technology into the hobby.
So Rabbi, that you're saying that was your idea. You just let Ezra run with it. That's
any
what
good idea that I've ever had is his.
Any
bad idea that I've ever had is
any idea that involves technology.
I give him all the credit.
If it involves technology, I didn't have the idea. That's for damn sure.
You mentioned tickets. We've seen that market really the last couple years kind of take off. Like there was always a market for it, but the last couple years the trajectory has went even higher. I've gotten involved and dabbled in a little bit. You mentioned your father, Rabbi, with the Don Larson perfect game in the World Series and having that ticket. Is that still in the family collection, or what happened to that thing?
I'm not sure we still have it. There were a couple moves involved. I'm not sure we do, but it's a great memory of mine.
I know Ezra, obviously, with on Mascot, you're at a lot of shows. Do you get to? I know the National, obviously, the Super Bowl of card shows, right? To me, it's if you're in the hobby and love the hobby, it's sort of a must attend or try to get there type of event. Do you get to a lot of shows together, Buzz? I know you said you guys live close. Do you get to a lot of other shows like local or regional Do you still get to do those?
He's mentioned the National. You've been to the National. How many times have you said you've been to the National? 30 something times.
I would think so. I would think about 30 years.
Yeah.
Gone.
That's
To,
awesome.
I don't, except for the pandemic year. I don't think I've missed the National. So we don't go together because he goes earlier and he's working it. So, but I love to watch him in action. And as you guys, I mean, he knows everybody, as he's like he knows 15 times more people than I do. And it's fun walking around. He introduces me, and I introduce him to some old timers, and I get a great kick out of it.
Ezra, now that there's another generation, tell the story of where you want to see kind of your role as the tradition passes on.
It's funny. I do go to a lot of shows, obviously, for Mascot. I was at the Dallas Card Show, and I was at the Long Island Show about 2 weekends ago. I'm going to Chicago Sports Spectacular next weekend. I'm at a lot of shows. But I always try to bring something back. I have 3 kids. I have a 5-year-old boy, 3-year-old boy, and about an 11-month-old daughter. The girl is not quite into it just yet. My 5-year-old has actually become fairly sports obsessed, and he has a couple very obscure favorite players. Some are well known, like Aaron Judge and Soto on the Yankees and Brunson on the Knicks. But
for now, Soto's on the Yankees for now.
Soto seems to be on the Red Sox and the Mets, of course. But he has these. He watches. I don't know if other parents of kids who are watching this have the same thing. But my son will go on his iPad on YouTube Kids, and if you click any sports highlight, a lot of times they're Olympic sports highlights. So he's become obsessed with the backup point guard on the New Orleans Pelicans, Jose Alvarado. And so he's become a huge Jose Alvarado fan. So I've been buying him Jose Alvarado cards. He also went through a Wemby craze, as I'm sure a lot of people go through Wemby crazes. So I try to get cards of players that he loves. His favorite movie is Space Jam. So I recently bought a Space Jam movie ticket for him. So I'm passing the bug on slowly. I'm not sure he fully understands cards just yet, but he loves sports. And that's how I started. I love sports, and then kind of through his involvement, through his interest, he brought me kind of into the hobby and to get that collecting gene.
But he'll watch whole games and study the moves of players and try to emulate them. It's very cool for a 5-year-old to do that. So he's going to follow in his father's footsteps. And when his father was 5, there was not one umpire call he ever agreed with. And now my 5-year-old grandson, he said the same thing.
The worst.
He erupts whenever there's a call. Umpire calls, like father, like son. It's a pleasure for a grandfather to watch it go like that.
Well, let me ask you a question as a grandfather. What do you want your grandkids to know about the hobby?
The hobby for them, of course, just like it's a different hobby that I entered, a much different hobby that he had. It'll be a much different hobby that I entered, but I think some of the principles will still be intact. People are always going to collect Ruth and Gehrig and Mantle and Jordan. I mean, I think that'll go on through the generations. So it'll be great for me to be able to leave some of my stuff, for them, so that it's part of my legacy, it's part of what they'll remember, about me, not just that I was a father, grandfather, and a rabbi, but that, this was also a part of my life. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And I think every great thing that we collect today, I think will still, you don't know it'll be hot, but that they'll have enduring value. John, I mean, you think a 48 leaf pack and an 8 is ever going to go out of style. You're not going to find another one. So it'll always have value.
Yeah, it's crazy how you said it eloquently. It's always going to be a different hobby in different eras. It's I started in 1979 as a 7-year-old kid, and to look back, at packs for a quarter and where we are today. And obviously technology is we have technology that didn't exist, let alone have it at that time. So it's ever changing. Does anything surprise? And this is kind of a question for both of you. Does anything surprise you, hobby wise?
What about you?
Well, I would say the explosion of modern cards and how they're like, I look at these auctions, I don't get any of it. I mean, when I say any of it, I don't get any of it. I look at these cards that are produced today that have, LeBron's autograph, and next year there'll be more of those, and they're selling for $200,000-$300,000. I don't get it. I mean, I really don't understand it, and cannot imagine that, with rare exception, this stuff's going to hold any value. So I would say that, that departure from the rare and vintage into areas that, that seem to be of great value to collectors amazes me.
I would say, it's a good surprise. I'm always pleasantly surprised. I mean, again, I travel to a lot of shows and various different regions across the country. In the 4 or 5 years I've been doing this professionally, every single show I have attended has been packed, absolutely jam-packed. Now, granted, I'm not going to the small regional hotel shows. I'm going to, the Burbanks and the Dallas card shows and the Nationals, but every show I've gone to has been absolutely jam-packed. Not every dealer, but most dealers I speak to are having good shows. The trade floor is liquid. There's a lot of, people ranging in, young kids with their dads to people who are older. I've also been to, and I probably have a good vantage point from Mascot. We see a lot of different items and price points, and some obscure and others more liquid. Everything has a market. Almost absolutely everything has a market. There is a collector for everything. There's an end consumer for everything. The caveat being, sometimes there's not an end consumer at a certain price point, but there's always demand for collectibles, for trading cards. And so that to me, I think, is a really good sign, a good healthy sign of the industry. Another great trend I've seen recently is a lot more women. I know you guys have both been very active in promoting women in the hobby, and kind of fostering a community that can really support more diversity in the hobby. As of the last couple of shows I've been to, I see a lot more female dealers. I see a lot more women who are behind the counter, not in front of the counter. I see, the exchanges you have with these women, or the women have with other people. There's a lot more respect being garnered, and so I think those are things that not necessarily surprise me, but are just great, interesting trends that I've noticed over the last couple of years.
I love, at some of these shows, watching these 10-year-old kids step up, and they've been through VCP. I mean, they know exactly what the price point should be. They're in there negotiating based on, real hobby knowledge. These aren't kids, just wide-eyed looking around. I mean, they're real business people.
By the way, Danny's son at the National is making
my son made more on taxes last year than I did.
Yeah, and they walk around with bills too. Yeah.
Well, that's because you probably didn't tell them everything. That might be
separate conversation. So what I wanted to know, and Ezra, you actually, both of you guys touched on this, is the changing demographic of the hobby. And Ezra, I wonder, from the dealer standpoint, are you seeing a lot of change in dealers, in the older dealers retiring and bringing in the younger dealers, or are you seeing pretty much the same group for the last couple of years?
We definitely noticed that the dealer community is skewing a little bit younger, for sure. I mean, you still, and again, it's regionalized, and certain dealers go to certain shows. For instance, you go to Shriners right up in Boston. That tends to cater to a slightly older dealer demographic. The Philly show and the Chantilly show, those are slightly older dealer demographic. As you go to a Dallas card show or Burbank, for instance, those tend to be younger. But I am, on the whole, seeing that the vendor community, probably because of the onset of breaking and live streaming and repacking, and all those do tend to be more digital innovations and sort of digitally enabled ways to sell a product, those definitely skew younger. But it's a good healthy mix, and I do think there's a community, right, for each sort of demographic, and those demographics tend to kind of stay within that community.
Awesome.
I got to ask, I'll put you both a little bit on the spot here as collectors. Is there, we'll start with Rabbi Levine. Is there a card or set, or is there an item that you sort of at the top of your want list? Like if you're going to.
Well, I really,
maybe another way, like when you go to a show, you mentioned you sort of go in there open-minded, but is there something you sort of gravitate towards or look for?
one thing I'm thinking of is, because I'm a type 1 photo collector now too. And Ruth Red Sox stuff is very hot. And I have 4 wonderful photos of Ruth pitching, once for the Red Sox, and ironically 3 times for the Yankees. And I have photos of those, which I think is incredible. So I'm looking for Ruth batting as a Red Sox. It's very hard to find. Very hard to find Ruth with a bat in his hand, or so that's a very specific thing. But you look for when you get into a class of things and you realize how difficult it is to find certain things, you're always on the search for those, and you realize that as like photos get hotter and hotter, how pricey they get really fast.
Well, I've got an invite out. If you come to Baltimore, I'll take you to the Babe Ruth Museum.
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's great.
Yes, I tell everybody it's the biggest secret in Baltimore, and it's worth going.
It's a great place, and that whole complex right next to Camden Yards. It's really quite wonderful. My older guy I'll tell you a collecting story. We were at Camden Yards, and I forget exactly why, but somebody we knew the owner, so we had seats right next to the dugout, and Judah, who always wore Oreo orange, growing up, and he always was looking over the Oreo dugout, and Sam Horn, is that a name that's familiar? Sam Horn,
3 home runs on opening day,
and he put a bat into my son's hand. I thought, he had just won the lottery. He was thrilled beyond. So that was a very early collecting story of my other son.
It was probably a big bat. Sam Horn was about 6'6", 300. Yeah.
It was probably a 42 ounce or something like that.
As a father, he's done a lot right, but he did one thing really wrong. He made he converted my older brother Judah from a Yankee fan into an Oriole fan. We were playing baseball one day. He was playing shortstop. He asked him which shortstop he should emulate. He said Cal Ripken, which is not a bad answer. It's a fair answer.
I said
the correct answer.
Watch Cal Ripken.
Watch Cal Ripken. From that comment, from that moment, my older brother, who used to be a diehard Yankee fan, went gung ho. Absolutely gung ho Orioles. He even painted his childhood bedroom orange and black. And
I don't know how he
somehow allowed that.
How he convinced his mother. One half was black, one half was orange.
Hideous.
I don't know how he convinced her.
He's always been my favorite son.
Oh, for sure.
If it wasn't going to be Ripken, Kevin Elster was the next man up, and he could have been a Mets kid too.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank you guys. This was a Amenche moved to appear, and we genuinely have fun. And Ezra, always love talking to you. Rabbi, thank you so much.
I'd say I love you guys' work, and I'm very proud of him. And he does such wonderful work, and as a father, it does my heart good to see him fall in love with a hobby and do great things in it.
Well, that's great. And Ezra, you got to live up to that.
Yeah, I was gonna say no pressure though.
I've got some large shoes to fill, so I will do my best to do it. Guys, always a pleasure. Thank you for having us on. So it's going to be a fun memory that we can cherish. We can pass along to the grandkids as well.
Absolutely. Stay well, guys.
Absolutely.
You as well.
And as I always say goodbye, John.
Goodbye, John.
And just like that, we're back.
Hello, Newman.
Hello, Newman. They were fantastic. I enjoyed seeing that again. And I enjoy everybody for staying with us.
Yeah, that was cool. I'll speak, and I think you'll agree, Danny, and hopefully the chat room. Like, that was better than I thought it was going to be, and it's great. Well, many of these, like how we started in the hobby store, is kind of similar. They're not always exactly the same, and it's always cool to see how it all kind of intertangles, and that is funny to hear. Rabbi Levine talk about his older son Judah, and how he became an Orioles fan, and Ezra taking a funny shot at him and his dad with that, right? And it was funny, and I never realized like Ezra's dad was that into the hobby to that extent.
30 years at the National.
Yeah, so. And probably the only one that can trump him is Dr. Jim, at this point. Or so, and they were both great, and hopefully folks enjoyed it. That would have been great to be closer to Father's Day, but like you said in the intro, Danny, too, we're getting around Christmas time, Hanukkah, family, that sort of thing. So, it was fun having them, and it would have been nice live, but for not being live, I thought that went really well.
The chat room is on something tonight. I feel like lighting Hanukkah candles. Ruben, who is now speaking up for Jews, even though he's not. It is the same day as Christmas. I'm so proud that, Ruben. Ruben, you win a prize.
It's a fruit cake. Don't get excited. It's a fruit cake.
Too much catnip.
And how about and I know Ruben said it. I said it when after we were done with the interview. Like, his dad is like a dead ringer for Hal Linden from the Barney Miller Show. Like,
I just love the fact that his dad seems to be the coolest guy. I want to sit and talk cards with Rabbi Robert.
Yeah. I just want to ask him what it was like filming Barney Miller.
Where's the hat?
And that was fun. That was fun.
TJ says he still enjoys watching Barney Miller.
That's a great show. You don't see it, like, even in syndication, and I don't know if they're putting it on later at night, but I don't run into it because I watched it as a kid. I probably didn't get every joke as a kid, but that was a great show. Also, I posted in the chat room. I kid you not. He died before I was born, but my grandfather on my dad's side, whose name was Max Newman, was a dead ringer for Abe Vigoda. Like, if I showed you a picture of him, you would say, why do you have an old photo of Abe Vigoda? And it's actually Max Newman. So there's a little useless information. There'll be no quiz on that. Just file that under TMI.
Real quick, while we're talking about TV shows from that era, MASH would be number one. The funniest scene is the Thanksgiving turkey drop on WKRP Cincinnati. Just want to clarify for the rankings out there. If you move into the 80s, yes, A-Team, Knight Rider, and then we move into Quantum Leap, but that's a separate story.
Yeah, A-Team. I never, I watched a little bit of WKRP. I never was a WKRP guy.
The turkey drop.
I have never seen it, so maybe I need to watch it.
We're going to YouTube this after the show. We got to call up the Google machine.
All right.
Yeah.
Usually it's me like showing you stuff you missed. This is a turn of.
I know. We got Hawaii 5-0. The
Hawaii
honeymoon.
5-0 was good, right, Matt? Do you remember Hawaii 5-0?
I wasn't a fan, to be honest with you.
Book 'em, Dano.
Yeah, I trust me. I've heard every.
No, that works. That works because you're Dano.
Right, exactly.
Book 'em, Dano.
All right, I don't want to ruin this. John's never seen it, so I'm going to make him watch this after the show. This is a true fact, Mike Petty. Thank you.
Yeah, I grew up on the students,
but
like a lot of people did.
But they were observers of the Hanukkah.
He did. Yeah, Ziggy brings up a point. He looked like Hal Linden, but he did sound a little like Jeff Goldblum. There's, he could do those apartments.com commercials, and
he could definitely be an actor. He could be an actor without a doubt.
Yeah, he was very poised, and he was funny. He was funny. How about he dropped the SHIT word on the Menches show?
John, I think if they can spell it, then they can probably hear it.
I don't like. The older I get, the less I swear. I figured that one out.
Yeah, this is true. So Tom Selleck is a huge Detroit Tigers fan, and if you notice, he's done a bunch of baseball movies and did almost every celebrity baseball game for 10 years, and did some batting practice. He hit it out of some major league parks. I know he played, forget to what level, but he's a legit baseball fan.
Yeah, and a segue there. My friend Chad, who I set up with at most of my shows that I do, including one tomorrow, is a huge Tigers fan and a huge Alan Trammell and Sweet Lou Whitaker fan. So there we go. The 7 degrees of my friend Chad Merritt.
There you go. I'm going to say probably not Larry, but I've never been.
Yeah. That would be interesting to work that into a sermon.
I have not seen the new Magnum. I'm not looking to, but evidently Christian Yelich was on there. Maybe that's how he hurt his back.
And I was Mr. T, not with the gold chains or big muscles, but I was scared to fly for a long time when I was younger. So,
Ziggy, we used to call security guards 2.5s because that was half of 50. They weren't real cops.
I never heard that one, so that one's new to me.
Yeah,
that might be a Baltimore thing.
No, probably. All right, well, this was a success. I hope people have a happy holiday. Have we even looked at the holiday schedule yet?
No, not. I'm just trying one day at a time here, man. I'm like, it's this time of year is as you know is crazy.
So it looks like the 20th. So we'll be back before the holiday. So get your list ready. Maybe we'll need a list. We'll do a naughty or nice list for cards.
There you go.
I don't know what that
means. We'll figure something out. It'll probably be Danny's idea.
And I don't even know what that means, naughty or nice cards. So
bench warmers. We could keep going, but we won't.
Yeah. Guys, I'm reading the chat room. You have me distracted. Best chat room in the business. Yes, Ruben, you will be on the naughty list. Didn't 5-0 come up from Hawaii 5-0? Don't know. It makes sense.
Yeah, that's a question for the Google machine, as they say.
Yep. Would you like the Google machine? All right. Anything else for you, my friend?
No, this was fun. I think this is the least amount of live talking I've done on this program. So there we set a record there. So mark this date in Mench's history.
It could be any program.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep it to Mench's. The December 6th the least amount of talking, and that was a good thing. And like you said, it's just great hearing other people's connections to the hobby, father and son stuff. And with me, I was fortunate. My grandfather, then my dad, and my son does have cards, so that kind of that thread kind of continues. Your two boys as well, and I think not every story is the same, but I think most of collecting, a high percentage is a dad or a grandfather that introduces you, and then it continues from there.
Well, on that note, say goodnight, John.
Good night, John.